In the autumn of 1367, within the stone-walled manor of Lord Everard of Kent, life moved with the rhythm of duty and decorum. Among the noble youths being schooled in the arts of governance, language, and grace was Olivia, a quiet, dreamy 20-year-old whose gentle spirit clashed with the rigid expectations of her station. She wore always a simple but finely stitched yellow woolen frock, its hem slightly faded from hours spent kneeling in the herb garden or perched on window ledges sketching sparrows. Her light brown hair was braided tightly beneath a white linen coif, as custom demanded, but her eyes often wandered beyond the parchment before her. Her tutor, Master Thorne, was a man carved from discipline itself, clad in a dark grey scholar's robe with a fur-trimmed collar. He carried a birch paddle not as a threat, but as a symbol of consequence. For weeks, he had watched Olivia's attention drift, her Latin verbs mangled, her royal genealogies half-remembered, her diplomatic letters left unfinished. A noblewoman's mind, he'd say, must be as polished as her silver. Yet Olivia's mind was a meadow, not a mirror. The breaking point came on the eve of the king's emissary's visit. The household had spent days preparing, tapestries cleaned, silver polished, and the young nobles drilled in protocol. Olivia was to demonstrate her mastery of Plantagenet lineage and deliver a formal letter of welcome to the Duchess of Lancaster. But when called forward in the great hall, she faltered. The sons of Edward II," she began, then trailed off, cheeks burning. She couldn't recall whether it was Lionel or John who married the Countess of Ulster. Murmurs rippled through the assembled servants and squires. Worse still, when Master Thorne asked for her letter, she paled. I left it in my chamber," she whispered. Though in truth it had never been written. Lord Everard's jaw tightened. The steward exchanged a grim look with the tutor. That evening, as the chapel bell tolled for vespers, Master Thorne summoned Olivia to his study. "Kindness has failed you," he said, his voice low but firm. "Now discipline must speak." The tutor's study was a chamber of shadows and silence. Shelves lined with leather-bound tomes loomed like silent judges. A single candle flickered on the oak desk, casting long fingers of light across the stone floor. Olivia stood just inside the door, her yellow frock catching the dim glow like a last ray of sun. "Place your hands upon the desk," Master Thorne instructed, not unkindly, but without room for argument. Olivia obeyed, her fingers trembling against the cool wood. She bent slightly at the waist, her back straight, her breath shallow. The fabric of her frock pulled taut across her shoulders. She stared at the grain of the desk, counting the knots in the wood to steady herself. "You are not punished for being slow," the tutor said, "but for choosing neglect. Your station demands more than pretty sketches and idle thoughts." He lifted the birch paddle, smooth from years of use, its edge worn but still sharp enough to sting. The first stroke landed with a crisp thwack and Olivia gasped, her knuckles whitening on the desk. The second followed swiftly, then the third. Each strike was measured, never cruel but unyielding. 6 in total, as tradition dictated for repeated offenses. Tears welled and fell silently onto the oak surface. She did not cry out. Pride or perhaps shame held her voice captive. Only the soft rustle of her yellow frock and the tutor's steady breathing filled the room. When it was over, he set the paddle aside. "Stand," he said gently. Olivia rose slowly, smoothing her crumpled skirts with trembling hands. Her face was flushed, her eyes downcast but not broken. There was a new clarity in her posture, a quiet reckoning. Later that night, in the hush of her small chamber, Olivia sat by the narrow window. Moonlight silvered the edges of her yellow frock, still bearing the faint creases of the day's discipline. Her sketchbook lay closed on the chest beside her. Instead, before her rested her Latin primer, inkwell, and a fresh sheet of part. She dipped her quill and began to write. Not a poem, not a drawing, but the correct lineage of Edward III's sons, each name formed with care. Lionel of Antwerp, John of Gaunt, Edmund of Langley. Her hand no longer shook. Outside, the wind swept through the courtyard, rattling the ivy on the manor walls. But inside, Olivia's resolve settled like stone. She would not be dismissed as careless. She would not let her dreams eclipse her duty. The yellow frock would remain her emblem, but now it would be worn by a woman who understood that grace required both heart and discipline. And so by candlelight, the noble woman in training began again. Not as a dreamer lost in the clouds, but as a daughter of England, ready to meet her world with open eyes and an open mind.